Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors, America's only daily outdoor TV show. Your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Bill Allen, sitting in for Winston Chester. We're already having a great time as usual off camera, so I got a great guest, some wonderful pictures for you guys, and some updates on what's going on here in our waters and cities. So let's start with the weather for today. Is a high of 91 with a low of 73. Now there's actually a little bit of a north wind blowing today, so it may be a little more bearable out there. But looking at our tide situation, you got a real good high tide at 2 p.m. So if you like to fish a falling tide and you're off early enough this afternoon, it's going to be a great time to go out there. The low is at 12:42 a.m. and the water temp is an average of 80 degrees. Of course, you know, the skinnier you get and you know, the warmer it gets, and you kind of bear that in mind. Keep an eye on your bottom machine if you got that on there. Choctawhatchee at Caryville has jumped up to 9.3, but it's starting a steady fall today coming out, and that's a product, of course, of the local rain we had. So you got a good falling tide there all the way through Monday. Apalachicola at Bluntstown. Apalachicola is at 7 feet finally, you know, and it's going to be fairly steady through the weekend with just a little bit of a slight fall to it. There is a pretty good mayfly hatch that's gone on last week that I got some. I haven't taken advantage of it, but I got some reports about that in Dead Lakes and down the river, so something to be aware of. Let's go ahead and look at the peak times. The solar lunar peak times today are 6:30 to 8:30, so you got time. You need to get ready and go if you can, but if not, I strongly believe in that falling tide after 2 o'clock. You know, give the tide a chance to change, maybe an hour or so. So we're going to go ahead and take this break, and we got some great pictures for you, some great stories about what's going on. I hope you'll enjoy it. All right, welcome back. As you can see, I'm joined by our illustrious mayor and good friend, Mr. Greg Brudnicki.
Good morning, Bill.
And we have been fortunate here lately to catch some fish and things, of which we're going to talk about in a minute. But get Greg to give us a quick city update about what's going on July 4th. I know a lot of things have been canceled around, but the city's got some good plans, right?
We do. You know, there's not going to be a parade this year, but I've had several calls and texts and emails about, because I know different cities have canceled their fireworks display. Well, this year in Panama City, we're going to have 3. We're going to have one that's going to be in the St. Andrews area, possibly close to where Sweet Bay is, and then one that is in Watson Bayou for like Millville, and then the one that we have downtown. So 3 fireworks displays for the city of Panama City.
If you want to see fireworks, you should be able to see them, right? From about everywhere.
Well, that's right. And so, because we know that we can't get, you know, we got social distancing, which you're a little too close to me, but that way people can watch from their house, you know, or maybe their neighbor across the street, or so in your neighborhood, you'll probably be able to see fireworks, and that's the thought. So yes, we're doing that on the 4th of July. So just be looking outside at around 8:45 at night when it's good and dark.
All right, amen. Now, somebody snuck out on a pompano trip without his usual fishing partner, and you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, this time of year is really fabulous because you can go before and after work. So, you know, daylight, first light out there is like, what, 5:10, something like that. And so you start easing out, you can actually get out, catch some fish, come home, take a shower, go to work. If you have to do it in the afternoon, you can fish till 8 o'clock at night now. And in another week or two, you can fish till 8:30 or 9 at night. So you've got that window of time, and that's what I did on the 1st of June with my very good friend, Tim Fontaine. We were talking about pompano. He's retired. worked at the paper mill for many years. And so he said, hey, can you go in the morning? I said, yeah, but I've got meetings starting at like 11, and I really need to get in. And so I was back in an hour and a half. We both had our limit of Pompano. It was fast and furious. It was terrific, so just need to take advantage of that. If you see that you've got a window, take advantage of that window and get out there. And we went.
What kind of spread did you get? How many rods did you guys have out?
I had out 3 and he had out 4, and most of the time I couldn't get the second or third rod back in the water because it was just, between catching the trash fish, which, we had a few hardtails and a few skipjacks in between the, in between the pompano. So, it was moving, and we were just out there fishing in the surf.
And fish bites played a heavy role, right?
Yeah, fish bites. I had my sand fillet rig. I didn't have time to even use a sand fillet rig. Got out and started doing also on the rod, boom, 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 boom. Oh.
Yeah.
You drop it and you're running, and so believe me, it was fast and furious.
Yeah, with 2 limits, that's pretty good. Now, how about the fish bites? You use strictly fish bites, is that right?
That's what I was using that day. Yeah.
Color?
It didn't matter. I had 2 or 3 different colors, and I had a couple of rigs where I had 2 hooks on, and I'd put one color on one hook and one color on the other hook just to see.
No difference.
Made no difference, man. They were
these things
eating.
are
That was it.
amazing.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It stays on the hook.
Cut those strips. You still, if the action is slower than that, which it is a lot of times, you still have to check those baits.
Yes.
You just can't throw it out there and leave it all day because the sand rubs on it. The smaller fish will nibble at it and things like that and kind of eat it off that backing that they've got. So, you still want to have a regular schedule of checking those baits and resetting them. But
especially with when you're in the surf, it's always moving a little. You want it to be moving.
Sure.
Well, believe it or not, you got your weight and you got your bait, and with that moving all the time, sometimes the sand gets on top of it. So they can't see it, and maybe they could smell it. So every once in a while, if you haven't had a bite for 10 or 15 minutes, just go out there and just move it a little bit,
Yeah,
and then reset it. Because I'm telling you, ever since I was a kid, I'd go pompano fishing, and I got hits within the time of moving it many, many times. So
that, and you can't stand to leave the rod alone while it's out there is the other thing. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and take our first break, come back with some great pictures. All right, welcome back. Last week, we managed to get out one morning, correct?
Friday.
Had like a 10 o'clock high tide. I think it was Thursday? I don't know.
Friday.
Anyway, Friday. And had an interesting day. The water was very high. We had huge tides last week and a moon, and it was, some of us had more fun than others. I caught the first redfish, was about 15 inches in the first 30 minutes. We fished for 4 hours till the tide ebbed and the storm caught up with us in East Bay. And the last 2 fish I caught in the last 30 minutes. I couldn't catch, I don't know, I missed fish, nothing was working, as opposed to the other end of the boat who was catching fish on top water, catching fish on Z-Man, catching fish on anything he picked up. So,
Paul Brown.
And in fact, Paul Brown especially. And I caught 3 fish all day long. Now, even throwbacks, they weren't there. I caught 3 fish, so it was just one of those days. They were missing me. I'm sure it was nothing I did wrong.
No, absolutely not. It was just, I keep giving you lessons, and I think that you get it.
My wife, I'm a slow learner.
Yeah, I think that you get it, and I'm going, man. But anyway, and I wasn't saying anything to make him feel bad.
Oh, no.
I was thinking about it.
Trust me, he would never take advantage of a situation like that. Well, let's take a look here at a couple of pictures from that day of some highlights. And this first one is one of the better pictures you'll ever see of Greg. I'm a really big believer in buffs, but we're not going to be able to scare any children with this picture. So That's one of several decent redfish that he got. That do you remember what that was? Was that topwater? That was early?
Yeah, it was topwater.
Yeah, and you could tell right there that what we've done is we've pushed way back up into the marshes with such a huge high tide, and that skeeter boat or Greg's can go just about anywhere. So we were fishing the offshoots and well back up in everything. So now that was a trout a little over 19, right?
Right.
It was picked up, and again, these are some highlights. Of course, that is, at the very end of the day, the last part of that tide, a 22-inch trout, and you can see that he just tore up a Paul Brown right there. And again, that's that same trout, and he's an absolute stud. I did get into the act in the last 30 minutes, so that trout's a little over 20 inches that I caught on a Paul Brown. I think that's the same one, but then here's one that's just about the same size, a little over 20 inches, that I switched and grabbed a soft plastic. So
Yeah, I really thought about letting you hold one of my fish. You finally caught one.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. And when you listen to that for 4 hours, it'll really make you want to go back. So
You didn't show them the sky though behind that one picture.
It got bad. When Greg, the last fish we caught was that 22-inch trout, and we were, a foot and a half of water or less.
Yeah.
And by the time it was getting close to the tide ebbing, but the action had really picked up in that last 30 minutes, as it does a lot of times. And by the time we looked up, and you look behind me, there's some dark back there that we had not been paying any attention to. We had our backs to it, as usually, we were outside of the marsh at that point, and we're taking advantage of a light breeze and a moving tide, just set up a real good drift, which is what we do a majority of the time, and just readjust that drift after a while. But we look back, and I mean, that storm was out there. It was moving quickly. Mm-hmm. And we, by the time we got everything gathered up, and you can't just fly out of a foot and a half of water. We had to work our way out, headed back towards the bridge, and we got into a storm that had cut us off. And I kept looking back, and that other storm had already covered up where we left. But boy, that was just, rain. But when we got close to the bridge, we ran into a thunderhead there. Those drops had to be that big.
It felt like it. Like somebody was hitting you with a bucket of water in the face.
It was, but thank goodness that didn't last too long. And so, pay attention to your surroundings. But you got a couple things you want to show there?
Yeah, we talk about these different baits and things that you use. There's a lot of new baits. This particular lure right here, this comes in a floater and it comes in a suspended bait. And so I just wanted to, people say, what do you throw? What do you use? Sometimes you think about, if you got it, use it. And so it's all about the action and how you work the bait. And so certain times a day, you'll throw a topwater, you don't see a bite on it, throw the twitch bait, be the same thing, except it'll be suspended and it'll go down a little bit. So use what you have, try what you have. But we've had tremendous luck on the Paul Browns. It's kind of, if they do bump it, it's kind of soft. It's really, really good
if
bait.
You notice that Paul Brown, the red and white pattern is what, Greg's got the hard version there.
Yeah.
This is what we were both throwing, near the end. And
I brought one of these old Bangalores. Now, the Buchanan boys, who were related to Roy Ray, who used to do the show a long time ago, they love this Bangalore. And they love it because they used it for bass, they used it for trout, they used it for redfish, they used it for everything. And when there weren't as many types of lures around years and years ago, they stopped making this, or they stopped selling this particular color. And so they wrote to Bangalore and they said, listen, I love this color. I just happen to have one that cracked. I probably had this for 20-something years, and I came across it this morning, so I wanted to bring it. But and they would order a gross of these, 144 at a time. And that's the only way Bangalore would make them for them, is to they'd order that many. I mean, it lasted for years, and they'd order more. So I said, well, next time you do, get me 8 or 10. And so I just happened to come across this this morning and thought I would bring it to show, if you work it right, you'll catch fish, and it's pretty universal bait. And for some reason,
and that's true about
Sonny and Bobby,
about
they just
anything.
loved this particular color, and I used it. It was very, very productive. So, if you've got old lures in your box and you haven't used them for a while,
if you don't put them on the wall, use them.
Right, or go blue fishing, and you'll get cut off and everything there. It's the best way to clean out your tackle box, because they cut everything off. So.
All right, so let's take this quick break. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. I'm trying to, my technological prowess is still in question, but one thing is like the rods. We've probably got a minimum of 4 rods a piece when we're going fishing, and it's always going to have a topwater rod set up, something for throwing Paul Brown, something for throwing plastics, and once I caught that 20-inch trout on a Paul Brown and we had drifted up a little bit, I turned around and grabbed this Z-Man jerk shad on these hooks that I can't remember the name of them, but these are so buoyant when you throw it, it just stands up like this, and they can't stand it, and that's what I caught the other one on. And also got that water was very, very clear, and went to a much lighter and smaller. This is a top pup for the top water, and Greg was throwing something pretty similar. But I want to take a second here and show you guys some pictures from a very proud grandfather that's a good friend of mine, Rocky Frazier up in Alabama, has a place down here. And I'm going to kind of go through these, but you take a look at these bass. This is his 16-year-old grandson who won yet another tournament on Guntersville Lake that they have at night up there. There's a real active youth fishing program. And there are the Green Brothers, and that was from Polecat Holler on Lake Guntersville. But anyway, this is Junior Bass Nation 3rd place. I'm just going to go through these, kind of let you take a look at them. But these guys are constantly on this lake and fishing tournaments together. And I mean, there's such a wonderful organization of people putting things on for these kids to fish in. And of course, they have teams in their high schools, and colleges now have bass fishing teams. But these guys obviously know this lake very well and spend an enormous amount of time on it. So like I said, I want to just show you these, and here's something from Rocky. You hear about all the bad stuff, but it's especially proud grandfather when you see this. They hunt and fish almost every day, involved in sports, and then very active in their church youth group. You just
Wow.
That produces good citizens. That's all there is to it. You're not out there getting in trouble and doing other things, and that's why we've promoted, and Winston has for many, many years, especially with his Panhandle outdoor class, getting youth involved. And Greg and I have been talking about maybe doing some things like some youth fishing clinics to introduce people to fishing and those kind of things. So, well, Rocky, I appreciate you sending those. I hope the guys see them, and I really don't know. I'm very proud of them for the kind of lifestyle they live and what you've provided for them up there, and their parents have provided for them. So, guys, if you've got pictures like that, you've got kids in the outdoors catching things here, that's in North Alabama, wherever they are, send them in. We want to share as much good news about good kids as possible, because there's plenty of other news out there.
Good.
So very proud to show those. You want to you got another kind of quick update for city stuff, right?
Yeah, real quick. We've formulated a strategic plan for the city of Panama City. We focused last year on downtown and the marina downtown, and now we're expanding that footprint to include the historic districts of Millville, St. Andrews, and Glenwood. And so we had a teletown hall meeting last Thursday night, had probably 110 people on there, and we talked about what would you like to see in your area. And so now we'll have meetings, the fancy name is charrettes. We start that next week, 15th, 16th, and the 18th at 6 o'clock at night, Zoom meetings, where people can get specific about what they'd like to see in their particular area. And then we will have face-to-face meetings, hopefully in August, and we will have a plan to roll out sometime the middle of the fall. So www.rebuildpc.org. And if you go to that website, it will give you all the information about how to get in to the meeting, with the dial-in, the access code, and all that stuff. And tell your neighbors. Let's discuss this with everybody around your area, and let's get every idea that we can to be able to make our city a better city. The idea is to make this the premier city of the Panhandle, and we want your input. So the progress continues. You're just having to do it in a different way to get it up there. Well, guys, I appreciate you doing it. Take one last shot at this. I've got an Instagram site called Captain Bill Fishing. It's got most of our pictures on there and some other things. If you want to visit that, you can kind of see some of the exploits and the fish that we're catching. And we're also working on a YouTube site that we're going to do together to do some fishing instruction and some other things. But listen, we've run out of time. God bless. Have a great day. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching America's only daily outdoor TV show, Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester, featuring hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.